One thing before we get started with this week's episode, the second annual United States of Southampton FC event is on. Last year, everybody met in New York, had a great time. So this year we're doing it again, and it's in Chicago. So if you are a United States or Canadian or Mexican-based Saints fan, or really if you're anywhere and you just want to support the team and you want to visit Chicago, this is the time to do it. So it all starts with kickoff at 9 a.m. on April 4th at Fado's Irish Pub in downtown Chicago. And after the match, after Saints hopefully take some points from Watford, we'll be moving on to Soldier Field, where we will watch Josh Sims and the New York Red Bulls take on the Chicago Fire. The link in the show notes will take you to a page where you can book a discounted ticket for that match. We're trying to sit together to block off rows 14 to 16 for our own little red and white section at Soldier Field. So if you are interested, the link is in the show notes. If you're on Facebook, that's the easiest way to get in touch with the event, to let them know you're coming. And I hope to see as many of you there as possible. So if you have questions, let me know. I will direct you to the proper people. But until then, let's get to the show.
You're listening to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans.
If you want to have guarantees, you have to buy a washing machine.
Monte with a scooping header!
We don't lose a match, either we win or we learn. And today we learned.
Отдача, Остин! Все-таки забил!
It's infield to Mane, 25 yards out. Lovely ball for Bella. Onside, 1-0! Buffon shot! Oh my word!
Unbelievable. We ran around the pitch like Bambi on ice. It was very, very embarrassing to watch.
And now, your host, Matt Markstone.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast and newsletter dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans, and available right here on southamptondelivery.com. My name is Matt Markstone. I am the host of the show. And no matter where you are, no matter how you may be listening, whether this is your first time or you've been here before, thanks for making the show part of your day. I hope that you enjoy it. And I don't really know what you would have enjoyed about that match. I'll be honest. There wasn't a whole lot there. One team kind of sitting deep in the second half, hoping to hold on for a point, and Steve Bruce's Newcastle trying to pick the lock and really failing to do so until we gave them an in. We basically left the keys out for them. They took advantage, and they leave St. Mary's with all 3 points. But when things don't go your way, you only have a couple of choices. And I think the choice here is to move on, to look forward to next week, to try to build on something that was there. There's got to be a foundation for something. We at least did look organized in the second half in terms of defending with 10 men. And let's face it, last time we went down to 10 men at home, the other team scored 9 goals, and that didn't happen this week. So there you go. I guess that's the positive. We'll build on that or something going forward. But anyway, we have a lot of stuff to talk about with this week's guest, Michael Kurn. You can find him on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Michael Kurn. And if that name sounds familiar, maybe you visited the fan zone at St. Mary's pre-match and you've seen him there. And if you're one of the fans of Southampton who lives outside of the UK like me, maybe you saw him last season on the Premier League's Fan Zone, which is one of the shows he used to host. And yeah, he currently does a lot of things. He's the voice of England hockey. He does like I said, the Fan Zone outside of St. Mary's. Maybe you've seen the Desire Dream Vision talk that he gives. Maybe you've seen him elsewhere. Maybe you were at the Southampton End of Season Awards last season where he was the host. Or maybe you've heard him on this show before. But if you haven't heard him anywhere else, he's here now to talk about his new book, Life of a Saint. If you want more information on that, listen to the episode, but also visit lifeofasaint.co.uk. Also, you can follow along on social media at lifeofasaint85. Anyway, I am very excited to talk to him about the book and also about the match to Newcastle, even though that was a bit less exciting. But he's there. He works for the club. So I avoided some of the questions, especially around the sale of the club. I didn't even bring it up with him. I don't want to put anybody in a weird situation just yet. And as of now, it's just rumor. So we're just going to go with it. I'm sure more information will come out over the next couple of weeks. And when that happens, we will discuss it. But didn't get to it this week for a number of reasons. But anyway, let's go ahead and get to the conversation now. Won't keep you here any longer. Once again, this is Michael Kurn. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you on the other side. We'd like to welcome back to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, Michael Kurn. You can find him on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook at Michael Kurn. He's got a book out, Desire, Dream, Vision, and another one coming out that is Life of a Saint. Michael, thanks for taking the time to join us in between, doing Saints match day stuff and I forget where it exactly it airs, but other match day stuff in the Premier League, and here you are.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much for having me on. Yeah, it's crazy at the minute. Kind of when you list things off like that, you kind of appreciate how busy you are until someone lists it off like that. But yeah, no, it's it's a crazy season again. I know we spoke last year, and I was doing bits and pieces, and this year I'm lucky enough to be involved with the club and doing some television across Indonesia on a match day covering the Premier League. So lots going on, lots on the agenda, and really excited to be working on this new Saints book as well, which comes out a little bit later this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully we get to talk about that a little bit, and also about, of course, the Newcastle match that did happen. We're speaking Sunday evening your time, and so it was yesterday, so we'll probably say yesterday, even though people won't hear it till Tuesday, but it's just how it goes. But Desire, Dream, Vision was your first book, I think, and then...
Yeah.
I don't know. I think when people go back and listen to kind of how you got to where you are now and what that looked like for you, I think it shows kind of you lay that out very nicely in Desire, Dream, Vision, and kind of how to go about that stuff. And if that's correct. Yeah,
no, it's been an amazing journey, really, the whole Desire, Dream, Vision thing. It's just been the philosophy of how I've got to where I've got to. I've been incredibly lucky, as I said last time I was on. I've done some amazing things, and life's always changing, life's always adapting, and there were a few changes over the summer with the Premier League stuff and Fan Zone that I was doing that I'm not on that this year. And kind of the Desire, Dream, Vision and DDV just links into that, and just kind of keeping positive, keeping a good frame of mind, and keep working hard. And, you create the destiny you want to create, and, you put the right effort in and put the enthusiasm in, you can always make things happen. So yeah, DDV's gone really well. First edition went incredibly well. We've pretty much sold out of that now. So we're going to do a second edition version of that a little bit later this year. A little bit tied up with another book at the moment I'm writing, which we're about to talk about. But yeah, no, it's been incredibly well received, and it's great to just keep spreading the message and hopefully inspiring a few people to follow their dream.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can say that part of what happens is when you go to do a new thing or something that you are hoping to do, it doesn't always work out, but you have some choices at that point. You can either kind of just turn it in and say, oh, well, it wasn't meant to be, or you can continue to find another path. And I think that, you mentioned the Fan Zone thing that I think that's where we met actually the first time. And that was a wonderful thing for me. And with my schedule change at work and things like that, I haven't been able to do it. And, I miss it, but at the same time, like, you got to take the positives from it that you have. And here we are. So, the book that's coming out at the end of May, but the pre-sale is coming up later this month, is Life of a Saint. And I guess just because it is kind of a new thing for everybody, why don't you just kind of walk us through what people can expect when they get the book? Yeah,
for sure. So it's a project that I've kind of had in the back of my mind for a while. I've wanted to get to the stories of the players, of how they became a Saint. I'm very lucky now that I've got lots of friends that are former Saints players and colleagues and people that I've got to know over the years, and they just tell such great stories. And it's not just the named players that internationally are known, like the Matt Letizier's, the Franny Benalis and the James Beatties, but there's players like Bill Beanie who played for the Washington Diplomats, and people like Mike Earls, and there's some amazing players, and they've all got such great stories. And I was just really conscious of it would be amazing to record these stories down. We have the evening with Matt and players like that, and Laurie, but there's a massive group of players that are kind of cult heroes, really, that fans of Southampton Football Club know. They know their stories and they know their journey, and I wanted to record it so they didn't get lost. And I just kind of came up with this idea of, well, it would be really cool to do a book called Life of a Saint, where we interview these players, and maybe if we can get 16, that'd be really cool. And just kind of ask them the cool questions. What was it like on the day you signed? When you sat in an office with Laurie McMenemy, did you meet Ted Bates? What was your first interaction? How were the fans? Your debut, and all those really cool little things that we like to hear as fans, and those little stories. So I spoke to a guy called Mike Dew, who's involved with a lot of the ex-players, and we kind of sat down and had a chat, and I said, this is what I'd like to do. Do you think there'd be any interest from the players to do it? And he said, Michael, let me ask some questions and we'll see what happens. And that was back in November. The original concept was to do 16 players in the first book, and we've got 26. The players have been so enthused to get involved, which is incredible. So, just looking through the list of people that are going to feature in the first book, we've got John Sydenham, Jimmy Case, Dennis Rolfe, Matt Letizia, Franny Benali, James Beattie, Paul Jones, Terry Payne, Laurie McMenemy, Ruben Agboola, Jason Dodd, Danny Wallace, Josh Hoeveld is confirmed last week as well. So it's incredible. And there's names on the list as well, that we're just waiting to hear back from, but are very keen. And I've got another list of 6 or 7 that want to do it. So it's incredible that the support's there. And the fans I've spoken to so far are really looking forward to it coming out. And, I can't wait to share it with everyone, because it's a real privilege for me to be able to conduct the interviews and spend half an hour with some of these players. And a lot of them have gone on a lot longer than half an hour. So been incredibly blessed. They've been incredibly given with their time, and fingers crossed we got something here which is not only a great book the fans are going to love, but also something that really kind of keeps the memory of all these great players alive.
I mean, what's it been like to kind of reach out to some of those players that you kind of grew up watching and have these memories of, and now, I mean, sometimes I'm sure you're put in contact with some of them, and other times I'm maybe it's a cold call or an email or a Twitter DM. I mean, how does that work for you?
Yeah, it's a real mixed bag. So I was very lucky last season to host the Southampton End of Season Awards, and Terry Payne was there, and I got to meet Terry, and I'd always kind of looked up to him as a Saints fan, going, oh my God, what a legend this guy was, part of the 1966 England squad, a record breaker in league appearances, and an amazing kind of advocate for the Southampton Football Club. And I got to meet him on that day, and he said, if you ever need anything, let me know. And I reached out to him. He said, Michael, whatever you need, I'd love to. And it's been incredible, really. Josh Hoeveld I reached out to on social media, and he came back and said, look, would love to, let me know. It's been amazing. And even like Danny Wallace, I was really lucky to meet Danny at the start of the season at the Manchester United game. I did an interview with him pitchside at St Mary's, and kind of swapped numbers with his son and kind of exchanged pictures, because there was a couple of pictures of Danny pitchside which he wanted, which I sent across. And I just dropped Tyler a message and said, look, any chance we could do an interview of your dad? This is what we're doing. We're raising some money for some good causes. And he said, just spoken to Dad, no problem, whatever you want. So the fact that the former players, their reaction has been like that means we're onto something good. So fingers crossed. Yeah,
and I think that says something about the club too, and about how they feel about coming back to do those sort of things, and their willingness to give their time to people associated with the club, which I mean, maybe you wouldn't get at other places, I think. Completely,
yeah. Southampton, it's one big family, and in the forward that I use a line of, once you're a saint, you're always a saint, and you are. The reaction that the fans give. Yesterday we had Hughie Fisher pitchside. I did my little introduction. He played 302 appearances for Southampton, part of the 1976 squad. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Hughie Fisher. And the whole stadium was the reaction was incredible. And I'm very blessed to be stood next to the former players at this point when I do the interviews in stadium. And I put the odd message out saying, guys, really appreciate your support for these players, because you don't understand how much it means to these guys to have that support and that love, considering when they stop playing. And it's incredible.
Yeah, and you talk about the kind of Saints family, and some of the proceeds are staying in the family. When people, the book will be on sale or for pre-order later in March, and I think it's £1 per book is going back to the Saints Foundation, with £2 per book also going to other local, I don't know if it's charities or kind of explain a little bit about what's happening with that.
Yeah, for sure. So the big thing for me is I wanted to make sure that the book really supported the former players and supported the club and the community as much as it could. So £1 per book is going to be going back to the Saints Foundation, which I'm really excited about. I'm just in talks with them about a few little things we can do. So fingers crossed that's all going to get the green light, which would be amazing. And then, £2 a book is going to go to other local good causes. So, there's a few little things that happen in Southampton at the moment. So, charities and good causes are really going to benefit from the book, which is going to be incredible. So if we can sell the number of books that I'd like to sell, we're going to be able to do some tremendous good work to really help people, which is a massive thing for me. And we're doing some limited edition artwork as well, which is going to be signed and auctioned off. And with a few pieces will be for sale on the website. And again, all the proceeds from that, we've got an amazing guy who's going to do the printing for us. So pretty much he's going to print all the posters for nothing. So every single penny that we generate from the posters is going to go straight to charity, which is incredible. And it's nice. The players are well up for it, which is brilliant. And we're going to do some live events as well. So we've got a big launch event on the 9th of May for the book. So if anyone who's listening in the States is over that time of year and they want to join us, 9th of May is the book launch day, and we're doing an event with Jimmy Case, Paul Jones, Laurent Menemy, James Beattie and Matt Latiz. So it's going to be wicked. There's going to be loads of other players there as well who are in the books. We're going to do like a sign-in session and a bit of a Q&A. So it's going to be pretty special. And so the reception's been amazing so far. So just really excited to get to the 9th of May. And, as you've alluded to, we go on pre-sale on the 27th of March. So we're doing I think the book's going to be about $11.99 RRP, but we're going to do an offer of $9.99 pre-order, which I think works out about $13 in America. So that's going to be quite cool. 27th of March, people can pre-order it. and it'll be on their doorstep on the day of release, which would be really cool.
It sounds awesome to me, man. I'm looking forward to getting it in my hands already. And May 9th is getting towards the end of the school year, so I'll have plenty of time to sit down and enjoy it.
Well, that was the plan, right? Towards the end of the season, it kind of launches the week before the end of the season. So fingers crossed, it's a great read for everyone over the off season while they're missing the football pre-season start.
Yeah, and hopefully, we're not preparing for life in the championship at that point. So I think we'll be all right. But worst case scenario, it'll bring back some good memories if the season doesn't wind up in a way that we all hope it does.
We're going to be fine. We're going to be fine.
I think we will. Honestly. Even if, as the Newcastle game went, things just didn't go our way, but we'll get to all of that. If people want to visit the website for the book to get some more info on it or follow along on social media, it's at Life of a Saint 85 on social media, and then it's lifeofasaint.co.uk. Links are in the show notes as always to help people get in touch and get the pre-order stuff done. And of course, I'll give away a book to one of the listeners as I like to do, because it's just a nice way to be able to support you and say thank you for doing this, and I appreciate you doing the show again.
No worries. What I'll do is I'll get a book signed on the launch event on the 9th of May, and I'll get it across so we can give that one away. No problem.
All right, man. Thank you. You want to move on and talk about Newcastle? Is that all right?
Yeah, man. That's cool. Yeah, all good.
Yeah. So you were working yesterday at the match or Saturday at the match. We've had Tom Deacon on. What's your role in terms of, do you guys do the same thing or similar things, or you alternate matches, or what I guess I'm coming from it and having spoken to him recently. So what's the context of your role on a match day?
Yeah, so pretty much really similar. I kind of host the fan zone, which is just outside the stadium pre-match. And then at halftime, I'm pitch side with a former legend. So every game we have someone different. We've had some great former players so far this season. And I have the real privilege of doing a little chat with them at halftime, which as I alluded to a little bit earlier on, is incredible, the reception they get. So, yeah, very lucky, and I've got great involvement with the club, obviously doing pitch side for them. And the end of season awards last year was pretty special as well. So, very lucky to be involved as a fan. I think it's one of the most amazing things you can do in my line of work is to be involved with your team. And, on a match day, when I give an introduction to a former player and, you've got the whole of St Mary's giving them a round of applause, and the way I've introduced them has enabled that applause to be, to come to fruition is really special, and it's something I'm really proud of that I'm involved with. So
yeah, awesome. The fan zone is something new, something that I'll be honest, I may have made a little bit of fun of at the beginning of the season when things weren't going well. But what's the reception been like for people, and have you seen? I guess what type of fans have you seen shown? Has it been whole families coming in, or has it been mostly just everybody stops by, or what's the demographic of fan that's been showing up to that, and I guess how has it changed maybe the match day experience for some of those people? No,
for sure. So the fan zone's open a couple of hours before kickoff, and you get a real mixed bag. You get families in there. There's like a little 3G pitch area in there for people to have a bit of a kickabout, and obviously there's a bar and food available. But we've got a big screen, so we play the lunchtime kickoff, and I do a bit at half time, do the team news, and it's all kind of very relaxed and just kind of almost just like a little fan zone really, where you can catch up with other friends. The Saints Archive and the volunteers and stuff all meet in there. So this season it's been incredible. There's a team of people and fans that volunteer that do the on-pitch banner, which is really cool, in the centre circle. Okay. And Saints Archive, which I'm sure some of the listeners may be aware of. There's a Facebook group where the guys Leon and Will that run that, they always meet in there, and lots of the Archive fans meet in there before as well. So it's a great little place to get together. And it was a tough start to the season, and it was a brand new thing, so it was always going to take a little bit of getting used to for the fans. But, I think everyone's really enjoying it so far, and there's always a good vibe and good atmosphere in there. And, it's great for me as well, because I get a chance to interact with the fans while the football's on the big screen. So get to chat to fellow fans is always enjoyable.
Yeah, so you get a mix of fans before the game, legends at halftime, and then, take in the whole experience of the day. And that's awesome. And hopefully you're, the match day or the fan zone will help, endear some of the younger kids to want to, show up every day and encourage dad to take him down to the game early and get a little bit more football in. It'll be good. So
exactly.
Anyway, so from there, I guess we should talk just very briefly about what else you do. And you were at the Chelsea game, which we'll only mention the one team that showed up actually. For you, what is a game like that harder when it's 4-0 and the game is kind of shut down in the last 20 minutes, and you still have to be kind of excited and bring the news, or how does that work?
Yeah, so for me, I'm currently doing Mola TV, which goes out across Indonesia, which is incredible. It's like 245 million people in Indonesia, I think. So it's got a massive audience out there. And again, it's that just a reminder of how big the pull is of the Premier League and different teams around the world, which is really cool. So yeah, I get to host pre-match. So today I was with Tour Andre Flo, did pre-match and half-time, and then interviews in the tunnel at full-time. So I chatted to Billy Gilmour, who obviously had an amazing kind of game midweek against Liverpool and then made his Premier League debut today. And I chatted to Gylfi Sigurdsson for Everton. And I guess the hardest thing on a game like today when it's 4-0 and kind of Everton really struggled, didn't really show up today, is the losing team interview. That's the hardest bit, because you've kind of, I always find I try and be constructive and positive. And, I think if you ask a genuine, well-worded question, in the sense you're not trying to throw them under the bus, you're not turning around and trying to insinuate you've had a shocker today. I think you get more out of them rather than trying to get a headline of, you were pretty poor today, weren't you? I think if you kind of go, look, didn't quite work out today, what went wrong? You get more out of them. So, I had a good chat with Gylfi today. He kind of said, look, at the end of the day, we didn't show up. We need to improve. And I kind of pushed him on, obviously, you need to make a quick turnaround because you've got a Merseyside derby next game. And yeah, and that's always the toughest interview when you've got to do that, and if it's a 0-0, they can always be quite tough interviews because, like I say, you want to get something that's a little bit more engaging. And obviously the Chelsea interview today, Billy Gilmour, that was nice and easy. Congratulations, Billy, Premier League debut. How did you find it? Teams won. There was a couple of other academy graduates that made their debuts and came on today as well. So there was lots to talk about there. So that's the hardest bit on a game like today. But, some incredible goals, and I just feel incredibly blessed that I get to do the job I get to do and, stand pitch side and talk about football. I'm very, very lucky in that respect. So very much enjoy it and say it's I feel very blessed to do it.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. And I mean, I feel the same way about getting to do this and sitting here and talk to you about it. So thanks for doing all the work and then taking the time to do this. And yesterday you would have introduced the team sheet for Saints at the Fan Zone. And I mean, when you saw it, I don't think really there was any shock. I mean, we knew somebody was going to play right back. I guess that was the real kind of only moving part over the past couple of weeks. I think the Moussa Djenepo and Sofiane Boufal, we all knew who was going to play there because Armstrong's out, Redmond's out. It kind of leaves those two guys in there from the start. But were you shocked at all to see Jan Valery on the team or on the team sheet, even though he hasn't even been making an appearance the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think he's been out since before Christmas, hasn't he, with the virus and stuff.
Right.
Was I surprised to see him in the starting lineup? A little bit, because I know I hadn't really seen or heard of him being around the 23s, and we knew he was back in training. But I think a big thing yesterday to take into account is Alan St-Maximin is quite a physical, strong player. And obviously Prowsey's done an amazing job at playing there for the last couple of games. I think he did really well, kind of filling in that gap on the right. But it's just one of those where you obviously needed a physical player in that position, and kind of looking at the options, if you were going to pick anyone we've currently got at the moment to play right back, I think Jan Valery was the right choice. But obviously where he's not played, he's kind of a little bit rusty, and I think that was kind of maybe what caught us at the end slightly. But, I listened to Ralph's post-match thoughts, and he said, look, at the end of the day, up until that point, we were very, very much still in the game with 10 players. There wasn't really they weren't peppering us with goals, and it was just a lapse of concentration. So, in hindsight, of course, you could say, oh, no, we should have taken him off. But at the end of the day, it wasn't really having that much of a shocker of a game. Everything was quite organised and we were in control. So, I can understand people shock at him being there and maybe kind of thinking, oh, why wasn't he subbed? But I just think the physicality was the big thing yesterday. And I've seen Carl Walker-Peters play in his first game. And for me, very skillful, good little player, just not massively strong in the physicality side of things. Like, Cedric was quite tiny and slight, but was still quite physical. Whereas I think Carl Walker-Peters might have struggled a little bit yesterday against Alan St-Maximin. So I could see maybe why Ralph went down that route and put Jan in.
Yeah, it almost seems to me like we have Kyle Walker-Peters in, and I think that right back spot is a little thin in terms of Valery's been out. We had a spot last year, and then, of course, Cedric came in and played a lot this season, which I kind of wasn't expecting. I was expecting to go into the season with Jan Valery kind of at right back, and we were just going to learn everything we could from him and let him learn and make mistakes, and we'll be fine because he's young, and that's what happens with defenders. But that hasn't been the case, and it's unfortunate that he does make that mistake deep into the game after we've been kind of playing with 10 men for so long that causes the goal. But I think it's going to take time. I think it's rust more than anything else, and I don't think that he I'm sure the calls on Twitter will be for him to be dropped and everything else, but I think it is what it is. And if he plays Kyle Walker-Peters and he gets bullied all day, then we hear the same thing. So it's kind of a tough situation for Ralph to be in. But yeah, I mean, the rest of the lineup though, no surprises, right? I mean, you're happy to see James Ward-Prowse back in the middle of the park instead of playing him out of position at right back, I guess.
Yeah, look, James is a fantastic player. I love JWP. So for me, just great to see him in a Saints shirt and out on that pitch. So yeah, he's had a great few games. I remember the Villa game was really good. Obviously Crystal Palace, all the social media was good fun with him having Wilf Sahara in his pocket, So yeah, no, I'm a big fan of JWP. It's great to see him on the pitch, and long may that continue. And it's interesting yesterday with Ingsy dropping out onto the wing as well after Musa went off. And Shane Long going through the middle. So yeah, I think we've got quite a versatile team going forward. That players can adapt and move and go into those positions. But I think it's like anything, isn't it? There's always strengths and weaknesses with a team, and I think that the club's in an interesting place at the moment with players and personnel and progress and moving players in. Obviously, it was a shame to see Cedric go. I know kind of a mixed reaction to him from the fan base, but I got to interview him a few times and got to know him relatively well. And when I did get to speak to him, and I think he always really did care about Southampton. And it was one of those situations where he wasn't going to stay at the end of the season. So financially for the club, it was best that he went. And we've done all right financially out of it, which is great. And fingers crossed. We'll see what happens at the end of the season. But yeah, I really hope Jan Valery as well. What I said, you pointed out really well there. That we're expecting to go into the season with him really. So he's been out with with illness. He's back in now, and I think at the end of the day, I can't see us going down. The fixtures we've got coming up, I think we've easily got 6 points in there. 6 points should be enough. That will take us over 40, and I think you do need 40 this year. Everyone's saying it'll be 38, 39. I think you need to get across that 40 mark as soon as possible. But I'm not concerned as I have been over the last few seasons. I think there's a few teams down there that have got a real tough run in. Not saying that ours is easy. Our next home game is Manchester City, but we've got Norwich next week. Get that. That's another 3 points. We've got Bournemouth to play second to last game of the season. Sheffield United, obviously they're doing really well this season, but again, you kind of feel there's some points potentially in that towards the end of the season, depending on how things are going for them. So, I think we'll be all right. Arsenal at home, obviously we had a good record against them last year at home. We've got them to play still. So yeah, I think there's definitely 6 points in there, and I don't think we've got the threat of the championship like you alluded to at the very start. I think you can alleviate your fear and worry on that, but again, you've got to get the points in the bag. And I think yesterday's performance is, as much as it was disappointing to lose, I think there were plenty of positives in that performance. And we play like that with 11 players, and we'll certainly be picking up points between now and the end of the season.
Absolutely. And I think one of the main things is last week we saw, the team just didn't show up. It was a poor performance last week, and I can be a little more blunt. And I'll be really honest. I was out of town last weekend. I didn't have to talk about the match, and I'm glad I didn't, because it wasn't one of those things. I think even Ralph said after the match, like, that wasn't good enough. And to see the response from the team this week, when we had 11 players on the pitch, we were doing well. Other than McCarthy did have to come up with the triple save.
Incredible save.
Just ridiculous. But he kept us in the game yesterday, even after we went down to 10 men. But I would say that we started the game kind of with a lot of pressure, and I think that had we had 11 men on the pitch, I don't think Newcastle would have been able to create much. Maybe they could hit us on the break, but I would have been happy to play that game 11 on 11 yesterday and let it play out, and I would take the result because I think we'd get it most days. But to see that response from the team, and then to see them continue to do that even after the red card, you just kind of see everybody just go like, all right, like, we all got to do this together. And I think that to me signals that the players at least understand a little bit of what Ralph's trying to do, and they are fighting for the manager and for each other, and they're all pulling in the same direction, which I think is a huge plus for the team, because I didn't see anybody yell at Valery yesterday, and maybe in the dressing room out of sight when that stuff should be happening. I guess, like, you got to give him some criticism, but you also have to kind of build him up, because you want him to come out and play his game next time. You don't want to beat him down so much that he's afraid to make a mistake, because that's if you're afraid to make a mistake, then you'll make more of them, unfortunately. And I think that's part of how it goes.
No, it must be. Look, when it happened as well, Sofian went straight over to him and put his arm around him, and so I think there definitely is that kind of team spirit and that team vibe. And something yesterday at St Mary's was incredible was the fans. It has been tough to watch this season. That it hasn't been good enough at times, especially at the start, and obviously the the game that should not be named. It's a very difficult time, and obviously that you want your home support behind you, and and on match day I try and I enjoy it as much as I can as a fan while I've got one eye on the job that I'm doing. But the fans were incredible yesterday, and there is something really special about Saints fans. Yesterday, everyone was in fine voice, everyone was behind the team, and it was really reminiscent of like days gone by when St Mary's was a fortress. It was really good yesterday, really special, and so I put something out on my Twitter just saying to the fans how amazing they were yesterday, because they really were, and I think everyone felt that within inside the stadium, and that's such a big thing. I think we underestimated that positive vibes. It's easy to, I guess it goes back to the DDV stuff really. Like, it's easy when things aren't going well to just kind of go, oh, they're not playing good enough, or they shouldn't be on the bench. But at the end of the day, like, Ralph's picked the side, and we've got to trust with Ralph. He works with these players week in, week out. We don't spend the time on the training ground getting to know them, how they're feeling, and how they're performing. So for me as fans, our part is get behind them as much as we can. Of course, as fans, we all have a little grumble here and there, but yesterday the fans were just incredible. So, if anyone's listening that was at the game yesterday, amazing. The support was incredible. So if we can kind of keep that going for the final games of the season at home, it's going to be a very difficult place for teams to come to, and I'm sure the lads will really, really appreciate it on the pitch.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of the things I wanted to ask you about is the atmosphere around St. Mary's comes up quite a bit. With it being, it hasn't been a fortress. It's been tough for it's been easy for other teams to come in and play. And sometimes the fans get some criticism for not maybe being as loud. But yesterday, I mean, you could hear it over the TV. You could, people that I spoke to that were in the match, they all said like, the atmosphere is really going today. And I think with 10 men, the type of game that we had to play. I mean, I thought one team was going to come to St. Mary's yesterday and park the bus. I didn't think it was going to be us. I thought that would have been Steve Bruce, but it didn't work out that way. But the fans, I think, and as you said, like the everybody was there for it, and I think that's what we need to as we go through the rest of the season. Yeah,
no, completely. Look, at the end of the day, football and being a fan is a very reactive thing, right? We see something on the pitch we like, we get up, we cheer, we clap our hands, and we see something that's not going quite right. Of course, we'll be grown and get frustrated. But, yesterday was incredible. And like you, I expected Newcastle to come and park the bus. They didn't, which meant we could play our football. And I think that's always one of the tough things. There's 3 teams in the Premier League that we play against that every time I see the fixture list, I just kind of cringe a little bit whenever we play Burnley, West Ham and Newcastle. They're the 3 games. They're the 3 teams in and around us we should beat. But they're like almost like the 3 toughest games of the season. It's just so annoying because you should beat them. You play better than them in parts of the game and somehow you still lose, or you just can't play against them because they just set up in a way that makes it incredibly difficult. And obviously we had West Ham the week before, and I was so positive about that. I was like, yes, the first time we went to the London Stadium, we won 3-0. We're going to do it again. And then obviously every game since then we've lost by 3 goals to something, and that kind of followed suit. So if you're a gambling person and you bet West Ham to score 3 goals, it's a pretty safe bet, unfortunately. But no, look, we'll be fine, I think, towards the end of the season. But yeah, the atmosphere was incredible yesterday, and really, really special. We obviously did the interview with Hugh at halftime, and there was a gentleman called Ken. It was his 90th birthday, and he came pitchside, and the fans were incredible with him. Gave him an amazing reception, which was a real beautiful moment as well. And like I say, I guess that rallying as well was behind the whole 10-player thing. The players rallied together, and the fans did as well. I think when it first happened, all the fans were like, what's going on, and VAR, and the usual VAR, it's not football anymore chance we're going around. But I think, if you do watch it in a replay, and obviously they show VAR in slow-mo, so it makes it look even worse. And I really feel for Musa. I think he's had a tough couple of weeks, of course, sadly losing his mother, and thoughts with him still at the moment. It's obviously an incredibly difficult time, but he's just mistimed the tackle. He's not gone in maliciously. He's not done it on purpose. And the problem is we've seen that given, and we've seen it not given, I think, which is a real frustration with the VAR. But unfortunately, I think with my professional head on, it was a red card yesterday, and I feel for him tremendously. But again, just the inconsistency. I guess we've seen it given and not given, and there was just literally, there was not one bit of malicious intent with the tackle. He's just gone for it. It's got out of his feet. He's gone through for the ball and unfortunately caught the player. But, he's a great little player, and someone at the start of the season who I was a little bit concerned about. I just, everyone was comparing him to Sadio Mane, and Sadio just had that little bit of extra strength, and I didn't feel that Musa kind of had it. And then the last game we played against Villa, he was just incredible. And I was like, yes, it's finally clicked. And then, of course, the sad passing of his mum, which is tough for anyone. It's a sad time for him. But and now getting the red card, unfortunately, means that he's going to miss a couple of games. But yeah, it was good to see him on the front foot and, playing well, which is really good to see. Because in the day, we want the Saints players to be playing well. We all have favourites, and some people are like, I don't really want them at the club. But at the end of the day, they're wearing the red or white of Saints. And, the more we get behind them, the more we kind of give them that support, I'm sure the better the performances are going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have to get behind the team, even if there is somebody in the team that, you don't necessarily care for. It's your job once the match starts, is you got to get behind them, because if any abuse you give them helps the other team, and that's not, of course, what we want. But it is unfortunate for him, as you mentioned. His mother, they said on the broadcast, was a stepmom. I don't know if his mom, stepmom. It doesn't matter. You lose a family member like that, and that it's going to impact you. And so he's, the team rallied around him a little bit, and it was nice to have him back. And I think he is just looking to make an impact. And when that ball is cleared or kicked away or whatever, if the guy's not laying on the ground, the challenge doesn't look nearly as bad. But it is high. It is stud showing. It is. When I saw it happen in real time, it kind of looked really bad. As the TV, but the TV camera just kept going, because it wasn't anything. But then as soon as he went to look at it, oh God, he's gone. Like, he's going to have a red card here, and that's unfortunate. And I think obviously that changes the game, because Newcastle had of course the triple save of McCarthy before that, but I think they wind up getting growing into the game a little bit more once we went down to 10 men in the first half. And it's unfortunate, because I think if we would have continued with 11 men, I think we would have been obviously much better. But I mean, other than that, in the first half, there were a couple of other instances that maybe should have gone to VAR decision. And overall, I wouldn't say Graham Scott had a great game for us. I thought there were a lot of 50-50 decisions that went against us, and that was a little bit frustrating, because when you add that to the VAR stuff, it doesn't make his job any easier for him, but it also doesn't make it any easier for us to look at it and say, well, he was being 100% fair, even though I know he's trying to do a job, and make mistakes were made. And I think he got most of the big decisions right, other than we'll talk about Buffal's handball in just a second. But I mean, from you, was there a lot of abuse going towards the referee from around the stadium as the game went on, and not just resulting from the VAR stuff?
Just a tad. I think the biggest problem is that with VAR, it's one of those things where as soon as it asks you to make a decision on something subjective, it becomes an incredibly grey area. If it's offside, whether we like the offside rule or not, it's offside or it's onside. It's a yes or no decision. And the same with the GDS. The ball's either over the line or it isn't. And I guess there's just a lot of confusion with the rule of handball, and how does that count? Is it a handball? What phase of play? It's just too complicated. And if you're going to apply VAR for it, you need to make it very black and white, yes or no questions. And obviously that then just creates a little bit of tension and creates a little bit of banter in the stands. And, obviously you get that little bit of banter when decisions don't go either way. But of course, VAR has been brought in to alleviate these game-changing decisions. But at the end of the day, I think, we can't argue with the Moussa Djenepo red card. And again, the penalty one, it's interesting, that decision, because I think that there's potentially a foul on Sofian. He gets pulled back and his foot gets stepped on. And the problem is his arm does move forward in a way of, I'm going to control it. But for me, I look at it in the sense of, well, if he hadn't been hindered and pulled back, is his movement, his whole chest going forward? Because he's been pulled, it looked like his arm's going. Right. But look, at the end of the day, justice was served. Hey, what a great save by McCarthy. Matt Ritchie, the old Pompey fan, not being able to score a penalty. So it was good.
Right. Yeah, if you're looking for positives, I think that's it. Is Ritchie didn't score, and he probably should have. And McCarthy, of course, had a great day. But yeah, I think my problem with that is, once again, in real time, it kind of looks like, oh man, like a little low, and I would have called that on Sunday playing in the park. Like, I would have said, hey, that's a bit much there, dude. But at the same time, it looked like Sofian was being pulled back there. And it seems to me, if you're going to go, because I forget who got a yellow card in that situation for Newcastle for bringing somebody down on that counterattack, that gets rescinded because it never happened, right? Because there was a foul, there was a handball in the box. And so, I mean, if you're going to go back and pull all that back, like, you got to look at what's causing him to do that. And if it's not clear, I just don't think it was clear and obvious. But I can't pretend I'm being 100% not biased here. And we didn't get it scored on in that instance. So I guess I got to be a little bit. I feel vindicated, I guess, a little bit, but it was frustrating, because that has to be one of those things where, once again, the people in the stands are starting to get upset with that, and I think that's totally acceptable on their behalf. Newcastle, I mean, you look back to the triple save from McCarthy, the penalty save, they had a lot of really good chances in the first half. No goals, go into halftime 0-0. Have to be happy with the performance once we went down to 10 men. Ralph changed some things. And in the second half, we did a fantastic job to limit their opportunities. Even if they had the ball, they weren't breaking us down. Maybe people were, doing all of the right things in terms of playing the game plan that was laid out at halftime for them. Their XG is way down in the second half, and yet they manage a goal. But going into halftime, did you still feel like we had a chance to get something out of the game, or did you feel like maybe it was slipping a little bit?
No, for sure. Look, at the end of the day, when it's 0-0 at half time, you're kind of like, here we go, we got a chance to get into this, and there's a chance still to get something out of it. So it was one of those at half time. You kind of thought, we've done well with 10 players. We'll see what kind of Ralph does at half time. And that second half performance, we came out, and as I alluded to at the top, when we were talking about Valerie, it was one of those where Ralph kind of alluded to in his post-match interview, he didn't make the change because it wasn't like we were struggling. We weren't getting over-tested at the back. We were kind of in control of the situation, considering the circumstances. So, look, it was one of those games I left, especially after the second half, of, do you know what? We could have got something out of that. We kind of deserved the kind of draw, but it just wasn't to be. But I think everyone left kind of in a positive way because we've not won a game, but I just think there wasn't too much discontent because actually the lads rallied well. They played together. It was a much more improved performance on the West Ham game, and there was obviously a few decisions in the game that the fans kind of weren't too happy with. So
I think that's fine. I think if we left there, I think that's always how it's going to go. There was always things that the referee is going to do that are going to upset you or whatever, and that's just how it goes. It just. I can think back to a couple of recent games where they seem to have compounded on each other, where it's been several instances that we can look back and say, like, maybe that did cost us the game, and it's not maybe as obvious as the Watford handball when they kind of literally punched it in the net, but it's still some things I think that we can be a little bit upset about. And one thing that I was actually quite upset about is I think early on they had it was in the first half, back to the first half, Lascelles scored from a set piece and he was offside. And the first thing he did was point to them and say, check it, and that's one of those things that he didn't make the box, like he didn't make the VAR sign, but I thought that was one of the things is that you weren't allowed to tell the referee, go look at it. That's supposed to be a bookable offense. And you take that for me, plus he should have been booked later on for a cynical foul, where I think he just stood in front of James Ward-Prowse and made no attempt to play the ball or get out of the way. He wasn't booked for either of those. And if you're booked for both of those, the game is different now. And so for me, that was what was frustrating for me. And I know that's a long way to go to say,
for sure.
But as I'm watching the match and I'm seeing that what we're getting called for, that's what's doing it. I can also say that I was at a state final or state semifinal basketball game last night where the referees did the team that I was rooting for no favors, and that explains my voice a little bit today. My daughter was
a little bit of aggression from that,
as well. But I'm frustrated with referees recently, and I'm not exactly sure why. But anyway.
The thing is, though, I guess we have to be a bit grateful. VAR was our friend at the start of the season. We were very much VAR. Oh, we like this. This is going well for us. So I guess it's karma, and it's kind of leveling the playing field out.
Either that, or it found out we tried to sell it to Liverpool for a lot of money in the second half of the January transfer window, right? Like,
it didn't want to go. I joked to a few people. I said, "Do you know what? The Life of a Saint book. I might do a bit of marketing where an exclusive interview of VAR, what's life as a saint," but then it started going against us, so I changed my mind.
No, that doesn't. It got cutting room floor. It doesn't make the cut. Anyway, there were a couple of times late on in the match where I just felt like when the subs came on, I felt like Long. You mentioned the change of formation. We kind of went 4-4-1. Ings went out wide and Long played up top, and Long ran himself into the ground. You can see him. A couple of times he went sliding into Dubravka at one point, and Dubravka wasn't all that happy about it. But Long ran himself into the ground. I think Ings ran himself into the ground yesterday, and that's what we needed from the team. But I was really a little bit disappointed when the subs came on, and that I just didn't feel like the energy was there from them. And Adams doing his best, but it just didn't seem up for it, and Obafemi as well. And I'm not sure if that's just it was the end of the game, and it's tough to come into a game like that when Obafemi came on and the game was already 1-0. So there's we're still sitting deep and trying, but it's just not there. But did we start to slide a little bit after the goal? And I think we have to go back and talk about the goal a little bit. But what did you notice, or is it just my kind of sometimes the TV coverage kind of wanes at the end of a match anyway?
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, the players, the intensity that we played at for the full game, it was always going to be tough playing with that intensity with 10 players. So, it wasn't going to be an easy kind of 15, 20 minutes, especially towards the end of a game. But obviously the goal goes in and that makes it quite tough, especially when you've been in it, because when you are down to 10 players, it does make it harder to get into because you have expended that bit more energy than the opposition. And I guess coming on as a sub in that position as well, it's quite tough. You come into a game, especially Michael, he's coming in and then you're 1-0 down. You got to try and find a goal, and he comes on the 85th minute, so you haven't got too long to make an impact. And obviously, you've got to get on the ball and try and make an impact straight away. You don't get much chance to get into the game. But I'm a big fan of Michael Obafemi, and Shea Adams. You feel from a little bit, it's not really taking his time to settle, and he scored midweek last week for the 23s, and he's kind of found his shooting boots. But yeah, it's been a tough start to the season for him. But I know he's very much a confidence player, so. Fingers crossed if he can bag a couple more goals in the 23s, hopefully before the end of the season, we'll see his first Saints goal, and he'll get himself blended into the side. But I think he's definitely got something to give. I think you see that with some players, that they can hit the ground running and they're in the squad and they're all firing all cylinders. We've just seen it today with Billy Gilmore. But some players do take a little bit of time to bed in. We've seen that over the years with players, and maybe Shea just needs a season just to get used to the tempo of the Premier League from being in the Championship. And, next year he'll be the superstar that we know he can be. So
yeah, I that's what I'm hoping for. And I know some people would be happy to see him go already. And I just think it's probably too early. He's still young, and there's a lot of, there's a good player in there. We just have to kind of find it. And I think one thing that points to that is the fact that both he and Romeu, as Ralph spoke of midweek in the press conference, said that they both came to him and said, we want to play. We need a match, and so we'll go down and play. Can we go down and play for the under 23s? And they did, nice. And they both played well. And I think that's the kind of stuff that you need from players that look and say, "Look, I either don't fit the system, or there's just something that's keeping me out of the team. I need to go make sure I stay sharp and get better." And some people are happy to sit on the bench, and maybe they don't like it, but they I think that's going the extra step. That I think that shows that, that Adams obviously wants to get better and wants to get sharper, and so for him to go do that and then to score, and especially I think it was even a Romeu assist. I think that's all good stuff. So we'll go through it. The goal Newcastle scored, it was frustrating because we had played so well for so long, and then it just kind of comes out of a lazy ball from Newcastle that Valerie it goes to. I don't know if he meant to kind of. I don't know if you just head it out of bounds, you just kick it out of bounds, you chest it down and pass it back to McCarthy. I don't know what the thought was, but I also just not sure he knew St. Maximin was there, and by the time he chested it down and it wasn't directly into his path, St. Maximin was on it, and that was it. And it's frustrating, but it's even more frustrating because Newcastle hadn't scored in like 7 hours and 20 minutes of Premier League football.
Like that, right? Yeah.
Come to St. Mary's, we'll fix that for you, but it's I don't know. What was it like when that goal went in around the stadium, and I guess for you and the other guys who were working the game, and what was your kind of immediate reaction?
Yeah, I think everyone was just a little bit deflated. God, we've done so well here. We've been 10 men for most of the game. And I think it was a little bit of disappointment. At the same time, though, the crowd were brilliant. They got straight behind the boys again, and the noise was incredible inside the stadium. So it's always disappointing. These things are going to happen. Like we said, Jan's not played in a few months, and first game back in. I think as much as some people will say, well, maybe it wasn't the right choice and we should have kept Ward-Prowse at right back, potentially. But at the end of the day, he offered something. He offered a bit of physicality, and he made that mistake. And yes, it's cost us the game, but at the end of the day, I think there were lots of positives to take from it. And it's his first game back, and yes, it's cost us the 3 points. But I think in the circumstances, it's tough. You don't know what was going through his head. You think, oh, I know, just clear it. But then again, was he aware that St. Maximin was on him so quick? Should he have known that he was on him more quick? I think it's very easy for us as fans to make a judgment and turn around and say, oh, Ralph should have subbed him sooner, or bits and pieces like that. But at the end of the day, he's come in. We've unfortunately not to win the game, but we just got to keep it positive. I think, he's another young lad who's got some real potential. We saw that last season, I think we just got to stick with him and kind of just support him, really, and say it's frustrating, disappointing, because it would have been great to get something out of the game yesterday, but sometimes that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, and we'll get on. We have some questions about whether or not Valerie should have been playing at all or whatever, and so we'll get into that a little bit. But I mean, just before we do that, the positives from yesterday, I think McCarthy, who did have a mistake last week, of course, that led to a goal for for West Ham, came back this week, and I think Who Scored gave him the man of the match, or at least the highest rating of anybody. I mean, from a penalty save to the treble save they had earlier, he had a couple of nice claims where he came for the ball and jumped through crowds of people to pull the ball down, and kind of did all of those things, and was unfortunately beaten for the goal. But he was so good yesterday, and we have struggled as a team to keep clean sheets recently. We have not always had. We've had a fairly settled defense in front of him in terms of Jack Stevens and Jan Bednarak over, since we've been playing well. But he's come in and I think really showed himself yesterday that he is a good keeper. And I think for me that was that and then the work rate of the team were the two biggest positives that I took away from the match overall. Yeah,
massively. I think he had a great game yesterday, McCarthy. That triple save was incredible, and I think his work rate to make that triple save was brilliant, and the whole team work rate was awesome yesterday. I think there was plenty of positives to take away. Like I said, when I left the ground, I was kind of a bit gutted, but at the same point, I was like, do you know what, though? We've given a good account of ourselves here. I didn't go away thinking, we've thrown that away. I kind of went away and, yes, was disappointed, as I always am when we don't get 3 points, but I kind of went away saying, no, do you know what? We're in a good place. We're going to be all right. It was a good reaction off the back of the West Ham game, and I'm sure we'll be fine. I'm very confident that we'll pick up the points we need, and we'll have a much more comfortable end to the season than we have the last few.
I really hope so.
Yeah. I think the biggest frustration is like the way the league is this year, that, a few more points that we didn't really pick up in February, could have really cemented us in the top half. I think that'll be the only frustration we'll have come the end of the season. But I guess when we look at the start we had and how things were pre-Leicester, I've said it, the game that should not be named. I think pre that, I think we can, as fans, can be a little bit relieved of where we are. And, I always had faith in Ralph, and I think the players responded in the right way. The fans are responding the right way in St Mary's. So, yeah, I think we'll get to the end of the season and go, do you know what? We maybe could have finished a bit higher, but at least it's not as nerve-wracking as it has been the last few years.
Yeah. And I would say just even when you look at the work rate of the team and how we finished that game out, Newcastle had their best chances early in the match and going into halftime. And in the second half, I thought we largely frustrated them. We didn't see the high press from the team, but we did see them kind of take advantage of just setting up low and just really frustrating them. And Newcastle struggled to break us down. We've seen Saints struggle against that type of defense too. And I would even say that you have to go back probably. I'm trying to think in my head of the last time we really had to sit deep and dig in like that and defend that well, because it never really felt like we were going to give up a goal. It felt like they were struggling for chances as the game went on, which gives me confidence. But yeah, I'm thinking back. You remember the Man City game where Pep grabbed Redmond and said, you shouldn't be playing like that or whatever. But that was I think the last time I remember clearly that we dug in that deep and really looked like, hey, we're going to be fine here. It didn't work out for us that day either. But there you go.
Yeah.
Anyway, like you said, I think move on. We learn from it, I think, and hopefully on another day against another team with 11 men, I think we'll be all right if we play like that the rest of the season.
Completely.
We have a couple of questions.
Cool.
So let's jump to that. We'll start with, I think it's Ian Maybe. It's at Ian_Maybe. And I mean, looking at the team right now, I would have thought that in those wide positions, because we started with Redmond, Armstrong, Buffon, and Gineppo, you struggle to get all of those guys into the game. One of them's normally going to be left on the bench. But all of a sudden you have injuries to two of them at the same time. And now we're asking those guys to do all of that work all up and down the pitch. But which area around the team do you think is maybe the I guess the thinnest, in that you would want to see somebody brought in to help, or would you go back to center back, or where would you go?
I think it'd definitely be defensively. I think just the right back and left back situation, I think it'd be really cool to get some, strong competition for Ryan Bertrand. I'm a big fan of Ryan Bertrand. I just think, maybe we need to look at the competition. Obviously, Matt Targett's gone across to Aston Villa now, and Sam McQueen's been out long term with injury. It's not really worked for Kevin Danso yet, which is a shame. So I was quite excited to see him come in and see what he could do. And obviously, with the right back, we've brought, Carl Walker-Peters is coming. We haven't really seen much of him just yet. So, yeah, I think that kind of defensively is an area I think we really need to look at. Obviously, we've got some great players going forward. Armstrong, when he's fit again, is incredible. Been really impressed with him this season. Danny Ings, the legend that is, goal machine. It'd be good for him to get his shooting boots on towards the end of the season again and get back on a little bit of a run like he did earlier in the season. But yeah, I think if we were to improve an area, maybe just defensively, I think is a massive thing. I think we've struggled since Virgil left. We had a real good solid defence at one point with Jose Font and Virgil and those kind of players. And, I think that's an area we haven't really fixed and reinvested in properly. I think we struggled up front for a while because we didn't really put the money back in and replace Graziano Pella. And I think kind of Ingsy's filled that kind of void a little bit now. He's our natural kind of goal scorer. He's got that, prowess around the box. So I think we've kind of solved that problem. But yeah, I would say defensively as a fan, that would be an area I think we'd want to just let's even strengthen, but just give a bit more competition for and just you kind of have a bit more support in there.
Yeah, I think pushing players is always good, and just and Jake, now that Jake Vogans isn't doing that, but Jake Vogans is not quite ready, and I just think that's where we're at, and yeah, I can agree with you there. I love Ryan Bertrand, but you need to sometimes you need to be pushed
completely
when you get comfortable, and for me that happens whenever I get evaluated at work, and or when somebody sends me an email and says, "Hey man, that episode was garbage," and it's like, okay, well, I guess
surely not. You don't get an email like that.
Well, it's usually from the same guy, and we'll see if he listens this far, because he'll go, "I can't believe you talked about that. You shouldn't be talking about that." But whatever, it doesn't bother me that much, but it does make me go like, okay, well, is there any validity here, and do I need to work on some things? And that's how you get better. So it's thanks to everybody.
7.6 billion people in the world. 7.6 billion people aren't going to like you, so that's the most important thing. But there are going to be a lot of people that do like you, so it's good.
We have a lot of questions that focus on Valerie, and so let's go through. The ones from Al Capone 156 on Instagram, and the ones from Colt Baker on Facebook. So we'll go with Colt, and then I'll read Al Capone's as well. So it says, do you think Rob Hasenhüttl should have started Valerie since he hadn't been on the pitch a while, even though he hasn't been subbed on in the last few weeks? And then Al Capone says, do you think Kyle Walker-Peters would have struggled as much as Valerie seemed to had he started? We kind of talked about it a little bit earlier. We talked about the strength of Valerie and kind of just the size and what he was up against in St. Maximum. And I think if you look at the fans of Newcastle and who they've really latched onto this year, it's been St. Maximum, because he's been the guy who's been their biggest kind of, I guess, a lightning rod. Like people are attracted to him. They are behind him. He's a good follow on social media. He's got some good celebrations, and he's just lively. And so I think he's going to be the guy that they're trying to funnel the ball through as they attack. And I think that I'm not really sure it matters who he's up against. He's going to make them look bad at some point. He's going to beat them, and Buffal did well to track back and help out and stuff like that. But for me, I think that maybe Kyle Walker-Peters has a bit more pace, but I think he's going to be out-muscled by him. And I think that's kind of what you had said earlier as well.
Yeah, no, massively. And I think that could be completely how I'd kind of answer that question is, I think, when you look at the physicality of Alan St. Maxim, he's a very strong player. And what I've seen of Kyle Walker-Peters so far, kind of, I said, skillful little player, but just for me, I don't think would have been able to deal with that physicality, especially coming back after I think it was a calf injury he had, wasn't it? That made him miss the last couple. But yeah, I think Valerie was the right choice, although he's been out for a while. I think, he has got that physicality, is a little bit stronger. And yes, it's always tough kind of throwing someone in like that, but I think it was the right choice. Yes, you could have put Prowsey back there where he's been the last couple of games, but actually I think he was very good in the middle of the park again yesterday. So there comes a point where you can't expect him to play there all season, because we need him in the middle as well. But as like I said, I've alluded to as well, Ralph works with these guys week in, week out. He knows when they're ready and when they're not ready. And if Valerie wasn't ready, he wouldn't have started. I think he would have held off. But I think the option was there. I think the physicality is the big thing and the reason why Valerie played, and I think why he stayed on so long. And it's easy in hindsight to look back and kind of say, Kyle Walker-Peters should have played. But for me, I think Valerie was the right choice. It was just unfortunate. If he hadn't made that mistake, I don't necessarily think we'd maybe having that conversation.
Sure. I'm there with you. And I also think that if you look at probably the game plan that Saints laid out, you look at not that Steve Bruce was going to go 5-4-1. I don't think he would have sat back that much, but I think we would have expected to have the majority of the ball and to have been attacking. And in that instance, Valerie is probably the right guy to have. He's great going forward. I thought so far he's looked better as a wing back. Because he is allowed to get forward more, and so I think that you take that into consideration with the starting lineup, and if the red card doesn't come, then maybe the game is different, and maybe then he's able to show a little bit more. Because even after that he still went on some runs going forward and was able to dribble nicely and had that nice shot where he cut in. And, that was one of the best chances we had in the first half. And that comes from him. And so I can't really be upset with that. I can be upset with a defender making the mistake because I still think are not quite good enough to overcome those mistakes. And I think that's been the way the Saints have been for the past couple of seasons is some of these teams that you look at Liverpool or Manchester City or things like that, where they make a mistake and the whole team just goes, we're good enough to get 2 goals now. And we're just not quite there yet at Southampton. Yeah. And that's unfortunate, but it is what it is. And we have to just keep moving forward with it, I think. Yeah,
100%. Like you said, he made some good contributions. And like, if we hadn't gone down to 10, it could have been a slightly different situation with that. But that's one thing that I suppose the difference between winning the Premier League and finishing mid-table is having that ability to be able to react. And it's something that's been quite incredible to see this year firsthand with Liverpool and Manchester City that we've seen in those last couple of years. Regardless of what happens, they go a goal down. They're just relentless. They just the relentless pursuit of perfection and just the way they keep fighting and they just keep going. They go a goal down, but they remain composed. It's incredible to watch. I think every team in the Premier League that isn't them looks at it in envy really. And it'd be amazing if Saints were able to play like that one day. You never know.
Yeah. Well, it'll happen, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure.
So one more question from Al Capone 156 here on Instagram. You talked earlier where you see these teams come up against us in the table, and you see these teams on the schedule, and you kind of go like, this isn't a good one. And my face when we play Newcastle or Burnley is not ever that great because it's not a game I want to get up for. And thankfully, we haven't had any of these games where the 4:30 a.m. kickoff for me has not been Burnley, which is great because that's one of those ones like maybe I'll just wait until 3 p.m. and watch it. But Al says here we haven't been able to pick up the points from teams around us in the table. His coworkers telling him we're too good to go down. I mean, what's your thought? You said earlier, I think that we are and we'll be fine. We'll pick up points somewhere.
Yeah.
I assume you haven't changed your mind in the last 25 minutes. So
no, completely not. We're going to be fine. Yeah, no, completely. And like I say, it's frustrating. I think those teams are always very difficult to play against. Burnley set up with 8 players behind the ball and hit on the counter, and it's difficult to play against Burnley. I think a lot of teams will agree with that. And it's frustrating. You want to beat those teams around you, and I guess that's the nature of the Premier League. It's a very, very tough league. There are going to be good teams that go down this year. I think anywhere below us can easily still get sucked in. And yes, mathematically we still can. We're not safe yet, but you look at those teams. There's going to be some good teams that go down this year. Brighton could potentially go down. You look at it, Crystal Palace are still could get sucked in, I think, as well. But my memory serves me right. West Ham are down there. Norwich have played some beautiful football this year, and it looks like they're going to go down. Watford have managed to pull themselves out, but we've seen the football they've played over the last couple of years. So I think it's always tough when you kind of make the analogy of it's teams are too good to go down. At the end of the day, there's a lot of quality in the Premier League now. We're very lucky to kind of have a league like that in the UK where teams are so good. And the Championship now is incredible, the level of players. I think Southampton have got enough this year. I think we kind of had our fingers burnt the last couple of years and it got incredibly nervy. But, I can easily see 6 points between now and the end of the season, which will take us over 40 points. And, I think that's definitely, once again, the magic number this year. But it could get really tight. But you look at some of the fixtures of what teams have got. Brighton have got a very tough run in now. Bournemouth, they've got a very tough run in. So I think we'll be okay. Even if we didn't pick up another point between now and the end of the season, it would be very much nervy time, but I think we'll be all right, and hopefully we can then build on it going forward to next year. And but I believe in Ralph. I know it would have been easy at the start of the season. I think for any other club would have maybe made a change, but I'm really pleased with the way the club stuck by Ralph. He really buys into the philosophy. You see behind the scenes and how the players react and what he's doing, and Ralph's reaction around the women's team. It's incredible to see, and he buys into it, which is so nice, because I think we have had managers in the past that haven't really bought into Southampton and the Southampton way, and he kind of really does, and we're very blessed to have him, and fingers crossed he'll stay with us long term, and everyone will keep their hands off him, and there won't become Tottenham come scratching around for him or something like that, or Liverpool. So fingers crossed we'll be all right. But I think we'll be up this year. I don't think we'll go down. Yeah.
I'm looking at the table now, and we're 7 points clear. You're asking teams who have not managed very many wins at all this season to suddenly come up with 7 points with 2 wins and a draw in the last 10. That's asking a lot, and that's assuming we don't pick up another point at all. And so I don't know. I'm not saying we're clear, we're fine, but I think as you said before, some of these teams have played good football over portions of the season. Watford, of course, beat Liverpool just recently, but then all of those teams below us, I think, except for Brighton, all lost this weekend. So it is kind of just how it goes. And if it all holds out, we'll be all right. And I think there we'll find a way to beat teams, hopefully badly, and we'll correct some of that goal difference.
Hey, look, the way we played yesterday, if we play like that against Norwich next weekend, I think there's 3 points there. So fingers crossed. Norwich are a good team to play against because they do like to play football, so that you find the space. So if we play the press like we like to play, there'll be space, there'll be room to make goals, and we can be solid defensively like we were yesterday. And McCarthy had another great game. We can stop Pookie and stop their outlets. I think we'll be all right.
Yeah, I think one thing to watch will be how many times we kick Cantwell early on, just leave him on the ground, give him the Jack Grealish treatment, be fine with me.
Well, we know the man to put on him, right? James Ward-Prowse.
Looking forward to it. But Michael, I just want to say thanks again for doing this. And I mean, unless you have something to add, I think we've kind of covered it, and there's no sense in going on forever about things. I think we've got it all out there. But anything else you want to add?
No, thanks so much for having me on. Always a pleasure to chat to you. And hi to everyone who listens, and make sure you keep supporting the podcast because it's an amazing job you're doing. So keep that up. And man, can't wait to share the book with you all guys as well. So like you said, you want to give one away. So what we'll do is I'll get one signed at the launch on the 9th. And I'll get it sent over to you to do as a giveaway. So that's no problem. We'll sort that out. I
appreciate that very much. And the book will be up for pre-sale on the 27th of March. The release is March 9th. You'll have the launch party. And there's more to come in this kind of series. And so,
sure.
As that comes on, we'll keep doing that. And I just want to emphasize again, the pound per book is staying with the Saints Foundation. £2 per book is going to other local good causes around the Southampton area. So I think for me that means a lot because I think there's a lot that there's a lot that needs to be done in the community. And I'm not from the community, but I talk to people that live there and have grown up there. And I think for people to know that that's staying there and going to help people who can use it, I think is a big thing. So people can follow you on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You're at Michael Kurn. Life of a Saint is at Life of a Saint 85, and the link, or the website, I should say, lifeofasaint.co.uk. All of that's in the show notes. And hopefully people enjoy the book and get on it, and hopefully we get some good stories in there. I'm slightly envious of you getting to do some of those interviews, but also not envious of all the prep that it must take to do 26 of those things. So good for you for doing all that.
It's good fun. I'm looking forward to starting the second book. So the second book's Life of a Saint 76, and it's going to be a very special book out next year to mark the 45th anniversary of the FA Cup final win. So, I feel very blessed and very lucky I'm going to get the chance to sit down with our 76 heroes. So, I'll make sure I don't take it for granted and enjoy every second for you all.
Yeah. Thank you again. And hopefully you'll be up for doing this again at some point down the road.
Anytime. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. And that does it for this week's episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you've enjoyed it. Special thanks this week goes out to Michael Kurn. You can find him on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Michael Kurn. You can get in touch with his new book at lifeofasaint.co.uk or follow along at Life of a Saint 85 on social media. Also, if you're the person who has just Life of a Saint on social media, either tweet with it or give it up, man. Like, you're ruining everything. If you're interested in the book and excited about the book, remember it goes on sale for pre-order March 27th, and it will be released May 9th. If you order it before then, you'll get it on release day. If you live in the Southampton area, maybe you can attend the release day launch party. There's a lot of plans to go along with the book and everything else, so be sure to stay in touch, stay up with the project. I am very, very excited about it, and I can't say enough that £1 per book is going to the Saints Foundation and £2 per book is going to other local good causes, staying in the Southampton area, giving back to the community, which I find to be admirable and awesome, and everything else that just is what Michael Kurn is. So remember, you can find him on TalkSport, on Indonesian television, and everywhere else that you look or listen. So stay in touch with him. He'll make it worth your while, I'm sure. Say hi to him on match day. He always appreciates that. Go to follow this show on social media. We're at SFCDELL_IVERY on both Twitter and Instagram. We're also on Facebook at facebook.com/SFC Delivery. The easiest way to stay up with us is just to go over to the show website at southamptondelivery.com. There, you'll have all the links to listen, subscribe, rate, review, all that stuff. And also sign up for the newsletter that comes out each and every Friday. The show would be impossible without the partners of the show. Matt Beeling does the logo for the show. You can find more from him at the We Are Southampton page on Instagram. Also, our partners, the Southampton page, are on Twitter at Southampton page and on Instagram at Southampton page 1. If you used to follow them on Instagram, that old account's gone. Go find the new one. The link is in the show notes. All music for the show comes courtesy of the Free Music Archive at freemusicarchive.org. The intro song is Epic Song by Boxcat Games, and the end of show credits that you're listening to right now is Aim is True by Poddington Bear. I look forward to talking to you all again next week, and hopefully I will see some of you at the second annual United States of Southampton FC event in Chicago on April 4th. I will be at the bar. I will be at the Fire game. I will probably be back at the bar. I'll have recording equipment, and I'll be looking to get your stories about how you became a Saints fan, your take on the season, and everything in between. So hope to see you there. And until next time, remember that together, we march on.